Hello again. This is Dr. Rand Oman for the Human Freedom Project. This project is designed to help you to become free from the world, the flesh, and the devil. And it's a series that is based on a systematic way of doing deliverance that prevents a whole lot of manifestations. There's a lot of people that do deliverance, but there's manifestations. I deal with some of the deepest possible clients that you could think of, unless you do it in an orderly, systematic fashion. There tends to be a lot of manifestations. What is a manifestation? It's when a man acts out. It's when a woman acts out. A manifestation is an outward expression of something that is happening inward. And so God has taught me over the years how to gradually, systematically remove the demonic strongholds that are in a person so that there is no manifestation and so it doesn't hurt the person. Have I had a few manifestations in this room? Yes. That was early on, but in the last few years, I haven't seen much. That's because I've learned, with God's help, of course, and the Holy Spirit's help, to do it systematically. God is an orderly God, and God systematically shows us how to do what needs to be done. Now, it's important that we listen to him and we pay attention to him and we care about what he says and we obey him. So if we want to do it in our own strength, we can try. But God is so merciful that even people who are not doing anything according to the way God wants them to do, there are biblical verses that say, Jesus said, hey, as long as the word gets out, it is important to systematically do it, and there is no perfect way to do it because none of us are perfect. But however my word gets out, it's still important. Obviously, that's not the exact verse, but I know it's in the scriptures where people were saying, people are casting out demons in your name. Well, we all do that. Some of us may not do it very well. Some of us may do it better. But it's not a competition. It's helping people become free. So I personally, even though God has showed me this wonderful way of doing things, I'm all over anybody who is trying to get somebody free. I don't care what method they use. Mine isn't the best method. It could be. Probably is, I think. But we should all kind of think that way. If other people are doing different methods, so be it. As long as people are getting free, that's what matters. And I really want to stress that. So as we get into our time today, again, we're continuing to talk about some of the things that are in the book I wrote 10 years ago that's just now being published, because God says, yes, now. But many of the things I'll be telling you today are not in that book, and they will be in the second book I write, and I'm trying to find time to do it. So I'm going to start by saying a few things on this video. And by saying these on the video, it will give you a little precursor into the depths of the kind of work that I do. I don't know if the word is proud, but I'm really pleased to see where so many of the people that have followed this process have systematically gone through it, have really turned their lives around and really do have freedom. And again, I say that's the enjoyable part of doing this. One thing I would like to say that I meant to say in our last session, our last video, is that any of you that would like to ask questions, you can ask those questions on my It's at Rand at the Human Freedom Project, at Human Freedom Project, not the, rand.humanfreedomproject.com. So if any of you are interested in any of the things I am saying, want me to expand on them in a future broadcast, I'd be more than happy to do that. You can also connect through the Human Freedom Project website if you want to ask questions on that. I will try to respond. That's really all up to you. I'm a teacher. I love questions, and that's the best way to teach. Now, today I want to talk about the different levels of demonic oppression. Now, again, we use the word oppression, obsession, and possession. Those are three words that are used by many people who do deliverance. Obsession is being obsessed with the enemy and having to get to know everything about it. In my case, I kind of had to. But I think in everybody's case, it's important to know the enemy, but not be obsessed with it. Oppression is when you have the strongholds on you and they're very strong and they're oppressing you and putting you down and making you heavy and depressed. And that's kind of a definition of oppression, really. And then possession is when you are totally controlled by the enemy. Now, I see possession on parts of people. I see possession on levels of people. But I have never seen anyone that's totally possessed because I deal with Christians. And because I deal with Christians, they can't be possessed. So I run into things differently than somebody who's trying to remove spirits from somebody who is not a Christian. Do I believe it can happen? I believe it would be hard because a lot of times it has to do with faith and it's hard to remove Satan from Satan, so to speak. Do I know without a shadow of a doubt that's true? No, I don't. All I know is that I'm called to work with Christian leaders and I'm called to work with people with high intelligence because usually the people with high intelligence become leaders. And because Satan knows that, he will try from an early age to try to put strongholds on a person that he sees this tremendous light. Everybody has light around them in the spirit realm. The enemy can see that light, and he's going to go after the light. It's like a bug going after light. They tend to do that, and then they get zapped. Well, that's what our job is there's a bunch of demonic spirits. Beelzebub is the lord of the flies, for instance, and flies get zapped when they run into the light. Well, we as Christians have not been the light of the world that Jesus was, and we need to become more so like that. We need to be more the warriors that God has called us to be. So as we talk to you today, I want to talk about the levels of demonic oppression, because that's more the level that I work with. So I'm going to show you a copy of what these levels look like. And again, I still haven't figured out a way to do this really well. Let's see, here we go. The first level is the boardroom, and we've talked about that in previous levels. Second level is the religious realm. The third level is the governmental realm. The fourth level is societal realm. The fifth level is all those in the world that are comatose. And the sixth level is the occult. Now, if you're in the occult, you have to go through all 6 levels and all the strongholds that are on them. And then, as you see on the bottom, then you get to God. So to really have a positive relationship with God, you have to have your strongholds removed from every other level. Does that mean and I'm going to put this down, but does that mean that you can't have a relationship with God? No. It just means that you can have a better relationship with God. So as we look at the levels, the boardroom was first, and we talked about the boardroom. Everyone is made in the image of God, and he has three parts. Those three parts are Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. However, because we are imperfect and we live in an imperfect world, we have more parts than three. I saw one person with just 4 parts, and they didn't have much on them. They didn't have many strongholds. But I've seen people that are multiple personalities, and everyone in the occult, which is the 6th level, everyone has numerous parts and subparts, and there's just so many combinations, and you have to learn those to really be able to help those people. And I have learned them. Have I learned them as well as I could? No, I'm constantly learning, just as any person on this earth should constantly learn. When you stop learning, life stops for you. It's important to, words are power. Learning is power, and the more learning you do, the more words you have. The more words you have, the more power you have. It has to be used appropriately, but the more power that you have, the more you can do in this world. So it's not about getting the power, it's getting God's power. It's not getting personal power in the world's power. That's what most people, even Christians, are after, the world's power. Power over somebody, power over a country, power over the other political party, power. And it's, frankly, as the old Christian song says, it's not wonderful working power. The power is in the blood. Life is in the blood. And what Satan wants to do is he wants to go after the light that is in us, and he wants to steal our power. So that's, we've talked about that too, the transfer of power. Excuse me. So as we look at the boardroom, we talked about how Jesus is the chief executive officer of our minds, and that we have a left brain and a right brain, and men tend to be more left-brained and women more right-brained, but the ideal is to be balanced, to have so many parts of us. I have 11 parts. I've talked about that before. All 11 parts were around the table in the boardroom, and after they all got their strongholds removed, I found out a lot of the spiritual gifts I never thought I had because they were blocked by the enemy. And I'm not going to go into that in a detail because you can look back at the previous statements about the boardroom and about parts of our minds. But I have a 3, 8, a 12-year-old, I said 8, 6, a 12, 18, 31, 56. I mean, I have different ages. In those ages, there's different developmental stages. There's different stages of life. There's deaths that happen. There's births that happen. There's marriages. And if God knows that they're going to be particularly difficult for you, he will give you a part. Or in some cases, he'll give you fragments of that part. And we'll talk about that in the next session or two. Because on the first level, on the boardroom level, there are just parts. As you get to the deeper level, you label it. Let's say you have a age 3 on the first boardroom level. On the second level, it would be labeled 3, 2. And there's only a few parts that ever go to the other levels. I may have 11 parts, but when I went to the other levels, there was only like 2 parts that continued to go deeper. And those are basically different brainwave levels as you go deeper also. The brainwave levels are alpha, beta, delta, gamma. I can't remember them all right now. But each one of them goes deeper, and each one is separated from the other, so you don't know what's happening with the other part. And what God does between all of these 6 levels is he keeps each of the levels separate. And that Satan keeps them separate, actually. It's Satan that does it, but they all are separate. And so as we talk about the religious realm, what is the religious realm? And I'm just going to mention these briefly today, and then we're going to go into each level more succinctly in ensuing broadcasts. So the religious level is a level that's all over the world, that Satan, it's his level, that he puts strongholds on people, some to become very religiously oriented, some to be very, it can be different types of religions on a larger scale. On a smaller scale, it's legalism, it's competition. There's so many kinds of strongholds. The need for power. There's so many kinds of strongholds on the religious realm level to keep the real Jesus from being known. And so a lot of the people I deal with, just about everyone, has a level 2 because they're all Christians. And especially Christian leaders they have a lot of strongholds on them. Pastors, I've had pastors that have an extreme amount of strongholds. Just because you're a pastor doesn't mean you're above strongholds. Everyone has them. And I have learned that. Everyone has them. I had them. My family has them. Not anymore, but because we knew about them. But my family is free, and they're expanding their horizons. I don't know if they're expanding their Verizons, but most of us have Verizon. But they're expanding their horizons, and they're growing because the demonic spirits and strongholds have been removed, and they're growing in their faith. And it's really important to know the religious realm, the government realm. There's a lot of programming that goes on the government realm. There were some people that came over here, like a person named Joseph Mengele. He was involved in the concentration camps, and they brought him over. And it was Operation, I can't remember the name of the operation, but Prescott Bush, George Bush's dad, was part of that, bringing a bunch of the Germans that were high level, like Werner von Braun and Joseph Mengele, and well, there was just a whole bunch of them that were brought over here, and they were kind of cutting edge in the work that they did, but a lot of it was evil, and a lot of that evil came over here, and they still continued. And that's why there's so much programming, is because we learned how to program from some of those guys that connected with some of the doctors in this country. He changed his name to Dr. Green over here. He wasn't called Mengele, of course. And he was doing programming for years in this country. There's various programs in various hospitals that still do programming. The CIA is very much tied to that. I would like to see the CIA just totally be eliminated, but that's just my thought. But I don't see a lot of good that's coming out of some of the governmental agencies. Enough about that. But that the governmental level is a level where there's a lot of programming. I've worked with people who were sex slave messengers, women, and I'll talk about that later. I've talked about women who are men who are, and women, but men. I've had a couple men that were programmed assassins. So there's some pretty heavy stuff in the government realm. I don't see that as often as I see the religious realm and the societal realm. But I do see it, and I do have to work with it. And if you're systematic, you can work through all of it. The societal realm is about society. It's about Hollywood. It's about the media. It's about um, all the different kinds of media and the people that are involved in those in that realm. And the societal realm is Satan is busy in the religious, government, and societal realms, and he's also busy in the realm of the comatose. That is a really interesting level. I have never worked with somebody that's comatose. Obviously, if they were comatose, they wouldn't be in my room. But there are many, many people who are comatose all over the world. That Satan basically uses that transfer of power that we talked about. They're like a bank of batteries. He needs power from humans because God works through humans. God gives them power. And so what Satan does with comatose people, especially, they have no way of defending themselves. Whereas a Christian can pray and be delivered and so on, but a person that is comatose cannot. So he just sucks the energy out of those people and uses it against us or against whomever, or may even use it against them and kill them. And the final level is the occult. The occult is anyone that is generally born into it, but some people come into it later, but many people are born into it generationally. And if you're generationally born into it, and you have come into my office, I have never seen anybody come out of that systematically. I've had a few people come here to bring me down and to curse me that weren't serious. And so now I pray all the time. We'll talk more about the occult later. There's a lot to say. They have a lot of power, and they use it, and we need to know about it. Am I taking a chance by talking about it? I suppose. But it needs to be known. I'm not going to worry about that at this point. If we have to die for the Lord, that's the least we can do. I don't necessarily want to. I don't want to be taken out of this world. I have friends and family that I think need me, and I need them. I know that for sure. But sometimes you just have to be honest and say what you know. So I'm doing that, and in the next ensuing broadcasts, we will talk about those 6 levels. And so for now, if Jesus, the Son, has given you freedom, you are free indeed. So goodbye, and God bless.